Hi everybody, it's me, Jessica Lahore, and we're back with another Jess Talk. And this time, we're talking about all of my jobs that I've had that aren't drag. And it's a whole fucked up list. So, before we get into this episode, as usual, you know the drill. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. This is a podcast, and if you want to listen to it anywhere, go to iTunes, go to Spotify, and more. Okay. Jobs that I've had that were not drag. Let's get into it.
Attention the whore. Attention the whore. Attention the whore. Attention. Here I am walking down the street, seeing all the boys trying to take a peek. Shorts pulled up, a chest out right. Come on, boys, just take a bite. Look but don't touch, spin it round and round. Crazy.
Okay, so I know that these jobs are going to go out of order. I'm trying to think about what was my first job that I would consider an employee, at what age, when did this happen? Because drag came way later in life, for sure. I started doing it when I was 20, but I didn't go full-time till I was 23. So when I think about previous jobs that I've had that were legit, my first job, I believe I was 15. I feel like a lot of kids in that realm go towards working at an amusement park, being a lifeguard, mowing lawns, things like that. And those were not for me. I was not an athletic child. I didn't want to do anything that required too much physical activity. So my first job was working at a place called Fun Services. And I think it still exists. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it still exists. It's here in Westminster, Colorado, and my friend's dad at the time owned the place, and my job responsibilities ranged at very base minimum wage from tearing down and setting up carnival games and packing trucks to running the carnival games. Things that you would do, throw the hacky sack in the hole or the football through the hole or knock the milk cartons down, and giving out prizes. But I also did a lot of party packaging. You set up this line and you send it down the line one person at a time. What is that, a fire? Not really, no, not an assembly line. It was a box assembly line, but it was not an assembly line. It was packing a box with your item. So I would put my item in a box, then I'd send it to the next person, they'd put their item in a box, and then the person at the end would close it, tape it, and it would go on the truck. And so everybody was responsible for doing that. And I hated it. But I feel like everybody at that age doesn't want to work. There's no mentality oh, I enjoy working, and until you realize, oh, I'm going to make money, and you have to work so much to make nothing. Yeah, so I was on this assembly line, and that was one of the first jobs that I remember, and I remember doing it for several summers. I did it for when I was 14, 15, and 16, and then I kind of phased out. And for the longest time, I just had the job. Most of the jobs that I had growing up, I wanted because I wanted the discount. I wanted free shit, I wanted discounts at the party store, I wanted free food, whatever it was. I didn't necessarily want to work, but we had to pack all these boxes, I had to run these carnival games, and I'll never forget the summer that I got my wisdom teeth pulled out, and I had to go run one of these games. And whatever little fucking twerp-ass child, and granted, I was a twerp-ass child too, purposely threw the ball at my face the day or two after I had just gotten my wisdom teeth pulled out. And I remember the excruciating pain. I started bleeding in my mouth. It was horrible. I will never forget it. They threw a football at my fucking head. So Fun Services, first job ever. Then I worked in a lot of restaurants. Restaurants were always my thing. I think it's because I liked those games where you could move around and whatnot. I was a host at a place called The Delectable Egg in Westminster, and I liked it because my sister was a server there. I was a host there, so that was my in. And any job that I do, I give my 1,000%. I work really fucking hard at everything that I do. And that's just always been the mentality that I put myself in. However, my boss was a creepy-ass bitch. He was weird. He liked all the girls, and he was touchy and brought them into their office and shit like that. But I didn't know any better at the time. But I was a host at the Delectable Egg for quite some time. It was a breakfast place that was open in the morning and closed at 2. So I did that for a little while, and then when my sister left, I stayed for a little bit, and then I was over that. And I moved on to a new restaurant. Guess what it was? It was across the street, and it was Perkins, which I don't think exists anymore. I feel like Perkins died off at a time, and Perkins was disgusting. Perkins was an eye-opener for so many different reasons. Not only was it next to a cemetery, and we used to joke about how they used to take the bodies, and that was the meat that they served at Perkins, which they did not, but it might as well have because it tasted awful. It was disgusting. I learned so much about sanitation at this job and the lack thereof sanitation. I was a busboy at this one, and I will, if I never have to bus tables as a full-time job again, I will be so happy never to have to do that again. The idea of touching food and plates, and I remember picking up plates and there'd be like Band-Aids, or like somebody's tooth was on a plate one time, and like people's snotty little rags. It's given me such a different appreciation working in the restaurant business for other people that work in the service industry. Like, how do I put my plates together at the end of a meal to make their job easier? If I spill something, I wipe it up, kind of thing, because people are disrespectful and disgusting. The amount of things, washing hands in dishwater that never got changed, and it was apparently my responsibility, but nobody taught me it. Having the line cook person always hit on me. I remember the guy, he'd take the outline of his dick and he'd be like, all the time. And I'm like probably 16 years old, and I don't know any better. I don't know, like, what's happening in these moments. There was a lot of fucked up things that happened when I worked at Perkins. I remember every time I had to squeeze a bottle of ranch, I had to squeeze it so hard it broke through the crusted over skin that had been created over days and even weeks of just not being washed. So you had to squeeze it so hard that it would break through that layer before it actually got into the container, and then it was warm and it was wet. I remember finding all those things on the plate. Actually, being a busboy was one of the first starts to me stopping biting my nails. That's a whole different Jess talk we should do sometime. Because look at these puppies. These are beauties now. But I used to bite my nails so awful. So awful. And that was one of them. And nothing would stop me. Nothing would stop me from biting my nails till they would bleed. But being a busboy stopped me from biting my nails. Because I all the things I would have to touch and all the waters and liquids in my hands. And I think that's why I'm kind of a germaphobe now. I like to wear gloves a lot when I eat and things, and I think that's because I worked at Perkins. But I loved the people. I loved the people at the Delectable Egg that I worked with. I loved the people that I worked with at Fund Services. I loved the people that I worked with at Perkins for the most part. But it was just awful. I hated it. I hated it, but I was a busboy for a while. What's another job that I had? I worked at Massage Envy, 2 different locations. When I was in college, I worked at the Fort Collins location. I worked at a different location in like Arvada at one point, and I liked it because of the free massages, benefits. You always get free massages or discounted massages. I love getting massage. I love getting facials. I was really good at my job. I was always good at sales. I'm always good at convincing people to buy memberships and to sign up for shit and buying products. I'm very good at convincing people to do things like that. I'm a really good salesperson. And I met a lot of wonderful people. I met some of the most wild people ever. And mind you, I'm still like 15, 16, 17 years old. I'm very naive. I barely know that I'm like a queer person. I'm like exploring, but I'm not exploring. And I'm really good at my job. I also went above and beyond at Massage Envy. I was that person that would be like, bringing in every morning donuts for everyone or chips for everybody or like buying something from the grocery store to have everyone share. I was always that person, checking in on folks, but I was also the one that misbehaved. I could never just like sit and do nothing. I was always on my phone. I was always on the internet, on Facebook. I was always doing shit that I was not supposed to be doing for these jobs. And I remember getting fired because I got really depressed and I couldn't make it to work. I called out of work because I couldn't make it mentally to work. And I got fired because I did that for many, many days. Many, many days. And I was like, yeah, I know this is coming. I'm sorry. But I was the lead sales associate at Massage Envy for a while because I had the highest sales. I knew my way around the business. And I will never forget, at one of the locations, there was a woman, and she had just given birth. And we were in the break room. And mind you, I'm a minor at this point. I really don't think this should have happened. There's a lot of things that should not have happened. And she was telling me about breastfeeding. And I was like, okay, like, this is interesting. Like, we're talking about breastfeeding. She's like, yeah, and my milk just goes everywhere. Like, I can make my milk squirt everywhere. I was like, I want to see. And what does she do? She pulled her titty out, and she's squeezing her nipple, and it just shoots all over the break room. True story. And I'm gooped. I'm like, what is happening right now? One, I don't think this should be happening. And that particular location, as a minor, or at least like 18, barely 18, she was trying to hit on me, but she had like 3 kids. It was a very uncomfortable relationship. But it was very obvious that she wanted to expose herself to me and wanted to wait till we get all these lawsuits now, like, coming up. I'm not bothered by it. These are great memories, good times. But I was always that team player. I always was willing to work with folks that were willing to be a team player as well. But I had good intuition. I still do. If you're a cunt or if you have bad energy, I just never wanted to be around you. However, Titty Girl definitely had a thing for me, and at that time I was very curiously exploring men, and I was like, I don't think I like this. I don't think you're for me. So that was another job, Massage Envy, 2 different locations for different times. I would consider being the lead altar boy a job. It was not paid, but it was a title and a position at my Catholic church. I was the lead altar boy for like 3 or 4 years, where I was in charge of all the specialty masses and coordinating and quote-unquote training with the other altar servers. And I was the one that would always bring the priest the incense, or bring the priest the wine, or bring the priest the Eucharist, or hold the candle. I took that shit seriously. I was proud to be the lead altar boy. I would meet with the priest privately. That sounds really awful. Nothing dirty happened. Nothing, no titties, no milk, no nothing like that. I promise, nothing like that happened. But I just need to preface that my experience at the Catholic Church was not a touchy-feely one. I think it's because I was an ugly child. I feel like if I were a thinner, more attractive child, then more priests would have appreciated me. That's how. I'm not like sitting here jealous that the priest did not like pursue me. Maybe they liked only the ugly ones. I don't know why I was the exception. Anyway, long story short, that was one of my jobs. I did that for 3 or 4 years, as I was the lead altar boy and did all the masses and stuff like that. And I was even in the choir. What was another job? I'm like trying to unlock all these fucking jobs that I've had now. Texas Roadhouse is probably one of my favorite. I was such a badass at Texas Roadhouse. Yeehaw! I was a host coordinator position. I was a regular host. I was a food runner. I was a server. I used to do the line dancing in the aisles. I fucking killed that shit. Anything that had to do with food and restaurants was just like where my happy place was. Because I used to play all those games like the Restaurant Tycoon and like Make a Burger thing, and like all within order of operation. I was good at memorizing menus. I was good at memorizing rules, responsibilities. Texas Roadhouse, they're famous for hand-cut steaks, legendary margaritas, fall-off-the-bone ribs, made from scratch sides and dressings. There's fresh baked bread. Yeah, it just like all pops back in. Chicken critters, there's 6 of them, there's 8 of them. But I also was really disgusted working at Texas Roadhouse. It was the people, not the people I worked with, but the people that would come into the restaurant. And I found that at other places, but Texas Roadhouse was different. Texas Roadhouse would have a line of people waiting to get in, but to each their own. I'm not saying that I eat appropriately. You know, I eat like a barbarian, just like anybody else when they're really hungry. But when I go to a restaurant, I don't I do that in the privacy of my own home. If I eat like a barbarian and I want sauces dripping down my face and shit like that, I would do that in the privacy of my own home. And one of the best things about working at Texas Roadhouse, and I quit. None of these places I got fired from. The only place I got fired from was Massage Envy because of being depressed or whatever. But I loved working at Texas Roadhouse. Free bread, free salad, free discounted food. Oh, and I would usually when you work at restaurants, you get sick of the food. You're like overeating there, and like, oh, I hate eating here. It's bad for you. I swear to God, I gained so much weight eating there, but I didn't even care. It was so good. I used to sneak that food into the movie theaters. I would be that person to show up to my friend's house at the party and be like, look at this sack full of rib tips and steaks and mashed potatoes and fries that are loaded. It was just really a really good time. But there are a lot of weird catty attitudes with some of the servers and things like that. Like, people busted their ass. They had big staffs, but there was always some catty servers and shit like that. But I always found a way to get along with everyone. But the people that came in to eat at Texas Roadhouse are memorably burned into my head. People that would order what we called monkey dishes. They're like this big, this round. You know, you fill them with like a gravy, and they want them filled with ranch, and people would order like 3 or 4 of them and just like drink them by the spoon. There was I would see people take their salad and you would not see a speck of green on their salad. They would just drink like cereal, like ranch salad soup. And again, to each their own. Eat what you like, but it's imprinted. Or people, you know that honey cinnamon butter? Yeah, that honey cinnamon butter is delicious. It's fucking delicious. But you know it's not delicious? When you have it overflowing in a bowl and you eat the balls like they're candies.
Girl, prison, honey.
People get pissed off at the stupidest shit. People are so impatient and so rude to service industry people. And I have a very high tolerance. Like, I get to a point and then I act up. Texas Roadhouse, that was another one. What else did I do? For 5 years, for 4 years, I worked for Housing and Dining Services at CSU. That was probably one of my favorite jobs. Not only did I work on campus and I did event programming for all of the different residents at Colorado State University and planned programs at the residence halls and community events, and I planned events for the entire campus, and I planned events when I got on a national position for the national campuses, like at those conferences. I was really good. I've always been good at event planning. Always good at bringing people together. Always good at logistics, order of operation, budgeting, management. I planned a giant conference. That was probably one of my favorite jobs, was at CSU in Housing and Dining Services as an event programmer, not an RA, because the people that I got to work with were students that were like leaders. They wanted to be there. They wanted to participate. They wanted to be involved. And not like an RA where you're like forcing yourself on 30 students in your hallway, in your floor, and only 10 of them care that you exist, and the other 20 think that you're just a piece of shit and should never exist. That was never something I had to deal with, thankfully. But I loved that job. I got to do it at a regional level. I got to do it on the campus level for so many years. Because of that job, I also indirectly got to work for conference and events planning. So I worked with the conference department to help organize and coordinate and plan conferences and events through the summer. I just was really good at that. I'm still really good at that. That is literally the majority of my job, is event planning and promotion and coordinating events and handling budgets. I'm just so good at it. And that was later in life. That was more in my college years. That was 18 to 23 kind of time frame. That's the job that I loved doing, was those event planning things. What are some other jobs that I had outside of drag? Oh, I worked at Hamburger Marys, the old Hamburger Marys, as a server, and I hated it. Oh my God, did I hate it. And I think I hated it because the owners of that location, they were raging alcoholics to the point where they would like always have a coffee cup from the start of the shift to the end of the shift. They'd fill it up with liquor, and they'd go into their office, and they'd have screaming matches. And I will never forget. I was training, and I was setting up the tables. I was cleaning things, and I don't remember how it started, but it got to the point where the owner got in my face and was like,
"If you don't like how we do things here, you can leave."
And I said, "You're not going to fire me." And I turned around and I kept walking and working. And he didn't say anything. He literally didn't say anything. And then he got all pissy, and guess what? He forgot that he technically fired me. He fired me right then on the spot. I didn't get fired though, because I chose not to get fired. He fired me. I said, "Yeah, whatever. I'm not fired." I stayed, showed up to work the next day, and he forgot because he's an alcoholic and he's got so fucking drunk that he didn't even remember the entire conversation. That entire business closed down though. So I didn't get fired from that job because I stayed. But then when it closed down, we all got fired. But I think that was a blessing in disguise as well. So I worked at the old Hamburger Marys, but it was toxic. The service staff was toxic. The environment was toxic. The building was crumbling before our eyes. It was just not a great place to work. But when you're queer and you want to be around drag, that's how you did it, you know? And I wasn't even out, technically. I had my name tag said Jessica Lahore because I didn't want people to know my real name. And I didn't want them to associate me with being queer. Like, you know what I look like, but you don't know my real name kind of thing. And I had a boss that would always use... One of the managers would always use my legal name against me. Like, I would come in for shifts, and they would blatantly tease me and say Zach in front of everybody on purpose. It was just a really awful space to live in. Like, work in, excuse me. It was not cute. So I was a server for a while. What else did I do? Oh, God. I worked at Target. For 5 months. COVID happened, 2020. I had been doing drag full time for many years at that point. I think 4 years at that point. Yeah, that sounds about right. 4 years. 5 years, maybe. And when COVID hit, most drag entertainers did not believe that this was going to be a long-term thing. And I didn't wait. A lot of drag entertainers were like, "Oh, I'm going to do unemployment," or "I'm not going to find a job, like this is going to blow over." And I went into panic mode. I was like, this doesn't seem right. My boyfriend at the time worked at Target. I applied, immediately got the position, did not qualify for unemployment because I had the job. And I was like, I just need to make money. I need to get a job. This is not going to go well. And so I worked at Target for 5 months, masked and whatnot, went to work every day, and it drained me of all of my joy. I hated going backwards in a career. Like, the position that I was in and the way that I was treated was kind of like my fun services job. That kid out of high school that needed to work, and I was treated by other managers that were the same age as me or younger like I was micromanaged and didn't know how to stack fruit. I just was in charge of produce. I did my job so well. I came in and did my shit. I was very much a don't talk to me, like I will do my job and leave kind of thing. But I had this boss, and she was just a raging cunt. Every piece and ability to critique and belittle and make me feel like a piece of shit she found. And I so badly wanted to quit. But I was so scared of not being employed. And I remember waking up one day and I was like, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a really good fucking day.
It's the best day ever.
I went to work. I was on the line when we deployed the truck. And I was doing it. Everything was going smooth. I was on top of my shit. I was feeling good. I was going out. I did all my things. And she came over and made some nasty... I can't even think of what it was. She made some nasty comment. after me having a good day. And I said, you know what? I think I'm done. I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so I immediately went to go find her. And I went and found her on her lunch break, and she was around all of her bosses and all of her management team. And I said, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And she's like, no, it's going to have to wait. I'm in lunch. I said, well, I won't be here. I quit. And I walked out. It felt so good. It felt so fucking good. It was the most empowering little slap to the face in front of all of them. I had one of her superiors or one of her management people try to stop me and try to like get me to stay. And I said, no, she needs to figure her shit out. She can't talk to people like this. She can't act this way. I am done. I am out. I don't need this job. And it kind of lit a fire under my ass to put more effort into drag. And I'm thankful for it because I started rebranding what I was doing with drag. I started finding different opportunities. I worked way harder because of that incident with Target. But oh God, was it fucking empowering. You know, in the movies when people do that, it felt like a movie moment. I was like, hey, I quit. And I got out of there. Long story short, loved restaurants, hated working for managers that didn't care about their people, good with sales, not good with daily tasks, especially when you know that you're qualified or you're capable of doing so much more. And I think that's why I love drag so much, is that I'm in charge of my own schedule. I'm my own boss. I'm an independent contractor. I'm an entrepreneur. I get to work when and how I want to. I've learned as a boss ways to interact and ways not to interact, ways to catch myself and hold myself accountable while also being an assertive, like, boss kind of thing. But God, some of those past jobs, I'd say the only one that has given me the most knowledge to what I'm doing now is my event planning services at CSU and budget management. That was like the most impactful to what I do today. The other things I could pick out influences, but that is truly where I feel like I found the most benefit. Ooh, just unlocking all of that. I'm feeling real heated. Those are some of my past jobs and experiences. In the comments below, tell me some of your favorite and least favorite jobs that you previously had. And also, if you're currently in a job that you don't like, life is too short to hold a job that you do not enjoy. Don't be that person where in 20 years you wish that you had quit 20 years ago, that you had wasted all of that time and energy and money for whatever reason, and you might be thinking, well, I need a job, I need to work. There's a weird piece of the universe that comes together when it comes to work, that I'm not saying to quit your job and just go off on your own. I'm saying if you're not willing to be a solution to that problem, you're going to sit in that problem and cycle and cycle. If you're not willing to grow or want any growing opportunities, you're going to cycle and cycle. And some people are happy with that routine. Waking up, I work till 5, I have the rest of the day, I've been there for 50 years. And I know people that go to work and they're miserable, and years later, they're still miserable. Let me know down below. And we'll see you next time for the next JESS Talk. Bye, everyone.
I'm an attention whore. Can't help it, bitch. I'm an attention whore.